This is 5 Minute Feng Shui Podcast episode 145, The Feng Shui of Trees. Welcome to the 5 Minute Feng Shui Podcast, where each week I talk about how to move energy and make money. You'll learn how to create a prosperous home and an abundant life using classical Chinese Feng Shui. I'm your host, Katie Weber, publisher of the Red Lotus Letter, Feng Shui Easing for Wealth. Each week, I'll cover Feng Shui topics that can help you improve your life, share inspiring stories, and always end with 3 easy-to-implement Feng Shui tips that you can put to work right away, and usually in about 5 minutes. Now let's get started on the 5 minutes that could change your life. Today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, trees. I love trees. I love being around trees. In fact, in the early 90s, one of the things that I got very involved in was how many trees were being destroyed in my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. What I was finding was beautiful, magnificent oak trees were being knocked down. Some of them were 100, 200, 300 years old. And a parking lot would go in, or some big box center would go in, and then they'd stick in some dumb crepe myrtles. Now, I love crepe myrtles. They're beautiful, and I love them. And my dad used to make walking sticks out of their stems and out of their branches. And they're beautiful. The myrtle wood is just beautiful. But there is no comparison of the loveliest crepe myrtle that can compare to the most magnificent of oaks. And live oaks from where I lived were something that was a treasure. They are our history, our environmental history and legacy. And I became very involved in saving them. I wrote a lengthy feature article for a local newspaper and covered how important the trees were, and found out in the coverage of this writing this. Actually, I wrote a feature article about it, and how San Antonio was the only city at the time that didn't have a tree preservation ordinance. Unlike our sister city, just an hour up the road in Austin. Oh my gosh, you can't look at a tree without boarding it up and putting fences around it to protect it, which is, to me, what we should be doing, because, they make air for us and they breathe for us and they create the air that we so are fond of. Long story short, we ended up getting a tree preservation ordinance passed for San Antonio, the only city remaining that didn't have one, and now there is one, and I hope that they're following it. I hope all cities will protect and preserve their living legacy that we have around us. So as you can see, I love trees. I was a tree climber growing up, and it's something that I see today. I see through feng shui eyes, but I also see through the importance of the environment and preserving it, and that they are our history. And there's many important trees that we recognize in Texas history. As a matter of fact, trees were, some of the defenders of the Alamo shot, the marauding Santa Ana army and that kind of thing. But, to me, just the regular old tree that you have in your backyard is pretty darn important too. They are a life source and they're vital members of our outdoor community. But there's a whole feng shui aspect about trees too. And this is one of those things that it can be somewhat difficult for me, because there are times when trees can be problematic. Like when trees are too close to the house or touching a house. We also know that to be a fact, that when we have trees that are touching houses, we can have insect problems, termites, we can maybe even get squirrels in the attic, that kind of thing. So it's important that we are good stewards of our trees and that we keep them trimmed, that we don't have them up against the house. Another problem that we often see with the tree is that they will be planted in the most unfortunate locations, like right in front of the front door or straight in line with the front door. And that can actually be harmful to the residents of the house, because it can block opportunity, block money, create blocks to growth in their lives. I've seen, in a famous story, Lillian too began her interest in feng shui because she was trying to get pregnant with her first and only child. And every single book of hers, I think hundreds of books now at this point, have been dedicated to her daughter Jennifer. And that was because that was her belief, was when she talked to her feng shui master, Master Yap Ching Hai, he told her, as long as you live here with that tree right outside of your door, you won't get pregnant. So they ended up moving to another house that didn't have a tree blocking the door, and she got pregnant. But all that time that they've been living there and trying to get pregnant, they were unable to. So it's sometimes there are times when it's best that a tree is not where it is. And this is just something that if we're just conscientious as landscapers and developers, that we'll be thinking about on those terms. I'm often saddened when I see trees planted underneath power lines, but really from a feng shui perspective, we just want to make sure that trees are an asset to us. Like, for instance, having trees planted along the back of our house provides us with really nice support, not to mention lovely shade in the backyard. So having feng shui as a guide, we see how important trees are for balancing our house, for making us feel sort of like we're protected. When we have a tree that's at our back, we feel supported at the rear of our house, and it is a good sign for us of growth. Trees are a beautiful symbol of health and vitality, and give us also a sense they're related to the family and to the sons in a household. So when we see a beautiful tree in a yard, we always think of good health. Was one of the best ways that you can enjoy your yard is to spend time out in the trees. It's also good for, here's a great little tip for you, is to go tree bathing. In addition to lowering your blood pressure and being a good symbol of health, it's also a good way to get opportunities and recognition. It brings that wood element, helps to feed the flame of fame. So it's a really good thing to have time to spend with trees and to be around trees in a feng shui perspective. Now let's talk about some of the things that they also do. Obviously they fruit, they flower, they give us things to eat. They also have a powerful influence on our homes. When we look at our trees, we want to look at what they're doing for our home, what they're doing in terms of our home, and if they are creating blocks, if they're imposing. There are trees, for instance, I have a client, and just recently, she's a magnificent oak tree, but it's so big and so large. It's actually sort of threatening. When you look at it, it's almost in a threatening stance. And while it really hurts me to tell her that it's not auspicious, it's so important that we look at the symbol of trees and what they can bring us, but also how they affect our lives, and find other ways to manage them. So let's talk about the support. Number one, when trees are planted at the rear of the house, they provide that mountain support at the rear of the property. So if you're familiar with feng shui, you know that the armchair position is considered to be the optimal position for your home in the landscape. So when your home is on the lot, on your property, if you've got a little rise to the land behind you, that's deemed auspicious, but maybe you don't, or maybe the house slopes away, the land slopes away a little bit. If you've got tall trees back there, they give you that support. Ideally, you want to have trees that are not too close to the house, and having those trees will give you that sense of feeling of support, like you would if you were seated in a nice management chair with a tall, high back. This rear support is critical in feng shui, because it means that you're not going to have to struggle in key areas of your life, and that people will come to help you. That maybe your manager or your boss or your customers will bring more work to you or offer you a promotion. This is part of that support. And it's also part of that feeling like we're struggling in life. It can feel like you're rolling a boulder up a hill or up a mountain. And it just means that life is that much harder. And that's why you want to have that support at the rear of your house. And trees really are one of the best ways you can do that. And I like to have them nice and tall. And then maybe if you have the land is rolling away from the back of your house, you can do a layered approach. So maybe you have tall trees like tall pines or any type of tall tree, and then maybe you have a shorter but tall full hedge behind it. That just adds a little bit more support for you. Now, another tree that we don't think about, because it's not really a tree as much as it is a plant, and that is bamboo. It's has a habit of a hedge, but at the back of a property, bamboo can give you solid support. Now, when you put it on the left side or the east side of your property, so that would be the left side as you were looking out from your house, it will give you beautiful dragon energy and great health energy, which is the best energy of all. Now, at the front of the property, bamboo brings auspicious opportunity for wealth and more income and opportunity for promotion. So if you're thinking about a tree for your yard and maybe you don't have enough space for it, think about bamboo. Now, bamboo gets a bad rap, and that's because many times bamboo that's planted becomes invasive and it takes over the yard. But there are varieties that are clumping versus running, so they're much more easy to maintain and to control. Now let's turn our attention to flowering trees. Flowering trees in Feng Shui are thought to bring reward. This is especially true of trees that are producing. So orange trees, these are very positive and auspicious symbols to bring wealth, and especially when they're planted in the southeast corner of your garden. Lime trees, lemon trees, also very helpful and auspicious for wealth and bringing good fortune luck, especially when they're placed in the east and southeast corner of your home. Lime and oranges planted at the front of the house bring great opportunities in the form of wealth and advancement. Apple trees are another beautiful flowering tree and producing tree. Whether it's apple or peach or plum, these are all very positive for promoting good relationships in the home. Pomegranates, another one. They stimulate love and pregnancy, great fertility and great abundance luck. When they're planted in the south, pomegranates and apples can also bring recognition luck. Peaches in the west bring excellent, beautiful luck for lasting children's luck and for family happiness. I also love to have any kind of tree that is fruiting that has a red fruit, like an apple, like a plum, in the southwest corner. It reminds me of ripe abundance. It's also beautiful for, it is a symbol of marital love when you have a pomegranate tree. So that's also another one to plant in the southwest corner. Although the southwest corner isn't really a place where you're going to want to put large trees, small flowering or fruiting trees are fine. We do want to have trees that are not going to be overtaking that corner because it's an earth corner, and this earth corner doesn't really like big tree roots going into it. So make sure that if you do have trees in the southwest, keep them smaller, keep them on the small side that maybe are fruiting or flowering and that are not going to grow like a really large oak tree or something like that. Now, it's important that you balance trees on both sides of the house. So if your home or business slopes down on the left side as you're looking out from your front door, or it's low there, you can plant a tree there to raise that chi energy and put that auspicious dragon side more in control rather than the right side of the house, which is called the tiger side of the house. Now, when you look at both of those sides, the left side and the right side, as you're looking out from your door, these represent the male or yin and yang energies. And when you have the left side, that's the yang, the right side is the yin. Again, this is as you're standing at your door looking out. And you want to have balance. When you have trees only growing on one side or too large on one side, that means that the house may be out of balance. And you always want to have trees planted on both sides of the house to kind of keep balance and harmony in the household. And when you have trees that are a little bit more on the left side, then you will see maybe the husband is a little bit more angry or might have a tendency to be a little bit stronger personality. Whereas if the trees are larger or taller on the right side, we have trees that this can stimulate a woman's anger. But when you have trees that are on both sides, you see a balance in the harmony of both relationships, and that they're able to work out their relationships sort of amicably, which is obviously what we want. And it's always better if you have that trees or any kind of tall shrubs that you have on the left side of your house are a little bit taller than the ones on the right side, if you can do it. Now, another tree that is a wonderful tree to add to your home is the pine tree. If you want to grow to be a ripe old age, plant a pine tree. A pine tree is considered one of the most fortunate types of trees that you can plant in addition to fruiting or flowering. They're especially auspicious when planted in the east corner of the yard. Now, I especially like it when you plant trees in groupings of 3 because 3 is the actual number that represents the big wood energy, and it just solidifies that. 3 is also a very potent symbol for growth. And when you think about having trees in your house and in your landscape, you're thinking about they're symbolizing your growth, and you want them to be strong and vigorous, and you want to have a tree that is very productive and very healthy and lush. Now, speaking of healthy and lush trees, one of the worst things that you can have in your house, in your home, and in your yard is a dead or dying tree. Dead, decaying trees draw a tremendous amount of energy from your home and from you. So be sure to remove any dead or dying trees, especially if there's someone in your home who's ill or elderly. A dead, dying tree will affect the luck, especially of the person in the corner associated with them. So, for instance, if you have a dead or dying tree in the northwest, this could harm the breadwinner or the man of the house, or if it's in the east, it could harm the oldest son. If you have a dead or dying tree in the southeast, it could harm the oldest daughter. It can affect your wealth as well. And in the southwest, if there's a dying tree, then that is going to affect the woman of the house. Make sure that any trees that are diseased, that you remove any limbs that are dead or dying or diseased. If you have a diseased or dying tree, take it out and take it all the way down to the ground and get that ground down. Do not have stumps in your yard because they are very negative and they will literally drain your health away. And that's not what we want to happen for you. You also want to keep trees away from the center sector. This is a common feature in some types of houses where you will have a center courtyard. Very important that you don't have trees, especially a single large planted tree in the center sector. Now, some houses have this with a type of house that is like a U shape, and there will be a tree at the back. This is actually a center sector many times the way it looks. And when I looked at, there's a famous movie star couple, and when I looked at their home, they had a tree planted, and they had a huge divorce. They had a tree planted in the center sector. Very important that you keep trees away from the center sector. And this is true. So in the center of your home, make sure that if you have, a beautiful tree in a pot in your home, which are wonderful to have, and I always love them in the lucky corner, add a tree to the left corner of the room or the right corner, whatever corner that is diagonal to the entrance to the room. And it's usually on the left side. That's usually what I would call the lucky corner. That's a great place to have them. But in the center of your home, they'll drain you of your money. They will drain you of opportunity, and they can harm your health. We don't want that. Now, this is another important fact for trees, is that they must not be planted in front of the door. Many times you'll have homes that will plant trees and they'll have one straight out from the front door. And this blocks opportunities, and it promotes personal struggles with finances, with career, with personal growth. Either remove the tree, but if you can't get it cut down, you can have lights that are put around the tree or in the tree that shine up in it, and that will help to take some of that energy away. So if you've got a tree that you really don't want to remove or take down and it's planted opposite the door, that's a real easy fix. Avoid hanging wind chimes in trees because that's really negative for them. And instead, I'd rather see plants or a planting around it with lights that shine up into the tree, or sometimes you see beautiful homes that may have lights that are actually positioned up in the tree, and that will handle some of their energy and help keep them from creating problems with a block, or creating blocks to career, or blocks to your money, or to your personal growth or relationships. Lastly, let's talk about a tree that also gets a bad rap, and that's weeping willows. Many people say that they're bad luck. I think they're beautiful. They are a lovely tree that represents the water sector. They are a wonderful tree for the way that they look like they're flowing down like a water fountain. And so, in my mind, it's sort of like Friday the 13th. This is one of those things that many people think it's a bad luck thing, and so they ascribe that to it, and so they stick with it. My feeling is that any tree is a beautiful tree, and they can be used in a way in your landscape that is auspicious. And I really feel like if you love weeping willows and love that beautiful flowing way they have about them, I say go ahead and use that fountain effect beautifully and put them in the southeast or east sector of the garden. And if you just have to, put it in the north sector, although trees aren't the most beneficial in the north sector, but I think with the water shape and that fountain effect of a weeping willow, that the north sector is a good spot in your garden. So southeast, east, or north. All right, well there you have it. Feng Shui of trees. Let's go over 3 important tips from today's episode and talk about the importance of how you can use trees in your home and in your landscape. Number 1, always use trees for support. Make sure that you have trees at the back of your house to give your home and your life mountain support, so you don't feel like you're always going alone and that you've got good support behind you. Tip number 2, plant bamboo. It has great good fortune luck. It's so auspicious. It's wonderful. And try the clumping variety versus the running variety. They don't all have to be invasive. I promise you, I've planted it in my own yard and it's a beautiful plant to have. Tip number 3, always balance the trees at your home. Make sure that if you have a tree on the left, you have a tree on the right, and vice versa. It's important that they represent both the yin and yang energies. And remember that you want to have trees a little bit higher on the left side of your house as you look out. Well, there you go. Love and hug on your trees. They are our beautiful sentinels of our environment and give us beautiful oxygen to breathe. So go out and hug and thank your trees.